possibly known as A-list as Cate Blanchett, which her house is, I understand, on the market. Alice.
Yeah, she's got a beautiful weekend retreat that her and her husband bought on the Hawkesbury River in Sydney, and it's a gorgeous little sort of weekend retreat that they bought, and they're selling it, and they only bought it in 2014 for 1.49 million, and they moved to the UK in 2015, and I believe it's been a largely unused property, so I think they obviously kind of thought, now they're not living in Australia anymore, they will sell it, but it's a beautiful little tree house, you know, you can only access it by boat, and it's quite special property.
I bet she's a little bit sad to part with that, thinking that if I just had that to come home to, but as you say, they don't get home much.
Well, and haven't we all been there where you sort of think, gosh, it'd be nice to keep it, but obviously, you know, there is a limit to what one can keep.
We've seen some beautiful homes around Australia. What's the worst house you've seen this year?
There was an amazing story this year where the agent himself described this as the worst house he's ever had to auction, and it was a house that literally you could not, no one was actually allowed to enter, even during the open for inspection period. So it was dubbed, you know, Brisbane's worst house. The walls were kicked in, obscene graffiti, floating floorboards, and then it sold for $253,000 in a really hot auction. And but it requires so much work. It was in such a derelict state. But it, you know, and to think you couldn't even enter the property, and it had, you know, I think 40 registered bids at that auction. Though it was quite incredible.
My goodness, it's all land value, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. From that extreme to a floating house on Sydney Harbour, Alice.
This is we've got this in the magazine this weekend. Actually, it's called Lily Pad House in Palm Beach, and the owner and designer of this house is a ocean lover, and basically he decided to create a home that's a floating homestay that's available for rent for weekends away or potentially summer holiday. You enter there by a little dinghy, and the water in the night sort of gently pivots the house around, so you might wake up in the morning and have a whole new sort of panoramic view than what you went to bed on that night. But
cast a line in, of course.
It. So you can't buy it, but you can stay there. I just thought it was a really sort of special property.
That is definitely water views all the way around. What if you just wanted to put a pool into your backyard? They're pretty expensive, and of course going through the process of DAs and even getting a pool in there is often tough for a lot of homes. We give you a story about these shipping container pools, which really interests me.
Shipping containers are completely on the rise. So for about $25,000, you can put a pool in, ready to go now, basically.
And they come in so many shapes and sizes.
And it's only getting better. I think we've got talk about them somehow becoming like an infinity level pool if you wanted one. There's so much to do with it. And again, it's that sustainability trend that we've talked about, which I shouldn't say trend, I actually think it's a real movement that we're going towards. And there's so much appetite for it, but it's so much easier to do it, basically.
There's a lot of options with those too. Obviously, the shipping container is one. You've got the prefabricated concrete pools that they can just sort of crane in and drop, and then you can decorate them at your will, and really, as you say, sustainable and certainly an easy way to get the job done fast without, of course, all the excavation and everything on a block.
And you know, compared to $100,000, what would you choose? You know, and I think they're now looking as good as a concrete pool has done in the past.
And they probably add, you know, a little bit more aesthetic,
a bit more spunk to it.
Pool.
Yeah.